The top story this hour: Ethiopian Communication Authority discloses two final competitors in the bid to partially privatize the telecom sector. And the business community calls on the government to ensure sustained peace and security across the nation. A very warm welcome to our Disney News Hour. I'm Solomon Danye. Thanks for joining me. External pressures keep coming as Ethiopia is gearing up to a national election and the second filling of the $5 billion dam GERD during the next rainy season. On Wednesday this week, influential Ethiopians spoke out to the world community about the undue pressure and intervention in Ethiopia's internal affairs by Western powers. The influential people will be delivering strong water letters to the US and UK embassies here, as well as the EU's headquarters in Addis Ababa. An Ethiopian legal expert says undue external pressure is a clear violation of Ethiopia's sovereignty and goes against international law. Meanwhile, other Ethiopian politicians condemned the current US attempt to impose its own will on the Horn of Africa nation. Goshumal reports.
Ethiopia is grappling with various diplomatic pressures because of its law enforcement operation in Tigray. Also, displacements and conflicts flaring up here and there seems to have given false confidence to the likes of Egypt and Sudan, who are trying to pressure Ethiopia into signing a legally binding deal over the mega dam on the Blue Nile before the second filling. External forces taking the law enforcement operation as a pretext, the legal experts said, adding, they are working tirelessly to destabilize Ethiopia. Talking to ETV English, an Ethiopian legal expert, Kiyas Agayas, said undue external pressure violates Ethiopia's sovereignty and international law.
Ethiopia is a sovereign state. Whatever instability or security challenges that we are facing is an internal matter. So it's something that we will solve internally without any external pressure or intervention. Under major international laws, state sovereignty is fundamental. Whether the state is poor or rich or developing or developed, doesn't matter. Whether it's small or big. So state sovereignty is an international law, and it's even a customary international law. So this is really absurd. The West, especially the United States and the European Union.
Meanwhile, other politicians condemned the current US administration for its clear arm twisting tactics on Ethiopia.
Their relation was more with the TPLF when it was in power rather than with the Ethiopian people. Why do I say this? When the TPLF was conducting 5 elections in Ethiopia, which were all of them rigged, the US government was endorsing the election outcomes, the outcome of the election, as legitimate. This is not in support of the Ethiopian people. The Ethiopian people, on the other hand, were crying, were demonstrating, until 193 peaceful citizens were killed in daylight in Addis. They didn't issue a statement on that. So they were in support of the TPLF from day one.
No country, no foreign country has any jurisdiction over another country, really dictating what the other country should do. Whether the country is America, the US, or the UK, or any other country. So what the activities of the Western government, especially the US government, is totally illegal. If you look by international law, or if you take the UN Charter, it doesn't allow any regime, any government to interfere in the internal affairs of another government. So there is no legal ground.
The legal expert Key articulated that external pressure is a manifestation of TPLF's extended arms and must be condemned in the strongest terms.
The intention of the request for postponing the election is to have a weak, chaotic and vassal state in the name of transitional government, in which Ethiopia will not be able to start big national projects like the GERD, and we will not going to feel the second feeling of the dam, because we are not going to have a legitimate government. That transitional government is going to say, oh, we are not elected, so we cannot negotiate on anything related to the Nile. See, the other issue is they are going to have a very weak state in which it takes orders from the West, and it started to serve like what the TPLF has been doing for the past 27 years.
The legal expert pointed out those foreign pressure is also a reflection of how worried and disturbed the superpowers are over Ethiopia's influential position in the Horn of African region.
It's not the dam that is discomforting the Nile Basin countries, especially Sudan and Egypt. If this dam is going to be completed, the power balance is going to be shifted for good. That's what they fear. It's not the reduction of the quota or whatever amount of water they receive from the river Nile. It's more than enough. Even last year, even this year, it's forecasted that it will be more than the average from the previous year. So their major concern is Ethiopia is going to change for good.
The legal expert called upon the public to stand together to safeguard the nation's unity and sovereignty.
Homework not done by Western countries has led to wrong policy action when it comes to Tigray conflict in Ethiopia. The international affairs expert Simo Peka made the remark in one of the articles he wrote. He says it is impossible to get a proper picture of the situation in Ethiopia just by following the media, citing that one of the most egregious examples was when the Washington Post editorial blamed Ethiopia of occupying Tigray. Shifarao Lako presents the article as follows.
In an article he wrote on the current situations in Ethiopia, the international affairs expert Simo Peka Parviainen elaborates that Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has led a process which can be characterized by nothing other than peaceful revolution toward genuine democracy in a country which is a civilization unto itself with over 4,000 years of independent history. The international affairs expert says things culminated in a TPLF sneak attack in November 2020 against their own country's armed forces, which had been guarding the same very people against foreign aggression for decades. He goes on to say that bad news, especially from Africa, is staple diet for media corporations, and this ensured that the situation rose like a rocket to global media consciousness. This is the very moment when, for many reasons, but mainly for lack of real knowledge of the Ethiopian situation, things started to go toward bias against Ethiopia in a major way, he concluded. Modern conflicts are usually internal and rarely direct between states anymore, where rebel movements conduct politics by all means, including armed insurgency, and where neighboring countries and countries outside interfere, according to the expert. Like a textbook example of this, Egypt saw a weak spot and, together with Sudan, immediately meddled in the conflict, for example, by occupying a contested border area. Egyptian actions are, of course, connected to the Nile question, where Egyptian obstructionism, baseless paranoia, and contemptuous attitude towards sub-Saharan Africans is visible despite the fact that there is no evidence to suggest that the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam would affect the water supply downstream, he said. The expert also elaborates that the EU, US, and other Western countries have entered their exams on Ethiopia without studying. He argues, however, that it is impossible to get a proper picture of the situation in Ethiopia just by following the media. One of the most egregious examples was when the Washington Post editorial in January 2021 blamed Ethiopia of occupying Tigray. EU and US homework is clearly not done, and in policy decisions, this is manifested best by endless demands for ceasefire. Pushing for dialogue with TPLF in this situation demonstrates how unaware or ignorant the EU or US is of attitude inside Ethiopia, he concluded. He also says Ethiopia is committed to investigating allegations of human rights violations during the conflict. It is, however, realistic to mention that even modern Western armies don't seem to be immune from human rights violations if we look at, for example, the evidence collected during recent wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. For the EU not to observe elections in 2021 is an unfriendly and misguided decision, he said. To refer to technical reasons as an excuse is disingenuous, and it is easy to see through this as an excuse, he said. For example, the current chair of NEB was persecuted under Mal's regime and had to seek refuge abroad, he said. She has now subsequently returned and assumed this position of responsibility. And does global media report this in their coverage, he asks.
An Ethiopian legal expert says filling the dam before the upcoming election is a wise decision in case the election is extended until after the filling of the dam. The expert Simena Kiros told ETV that this is a time when external forces are colluding to destabilize Ethiopia, adding this is a delicate matter needing calculated and wise decision. Goshamaliso reports.
It is to be recalled that Ethiopia plans to conduct the second filling of its $5 billion dam come the next rainy season. But amidst concerted efforts by external forces, particularly by the likes of Egypt and Sudan, to thwart the completion of the dam, Ethiopia has announced the extension of its general and parliamentary election for an indefinite time due to logistical reasons. Sudan and Egypt keep coming up with new and irrelevant ideas during each round of trilateral talks in an apparent attempt to pressure Ethiopia to sign a legally binding agreement. Commenting on the matter, renowned legal expert Simena Kiros said filling the dam before the election is a wise decision as external forces are working day and night to destabilize Ethiopia.
We have to have things in a very strategic way. If we fill the dam first, I think that would be a very good thing. And then we conduct election. Conducting election is bringing people to the public square in big numbers. That is very easy to create some kind of mob action and to destabilize the country. So I think it is a very wise decision to have the second round of filling of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam and then conducting the election afterwards. I am sure we will fill the second round of filling in a very short period as we did in the first round of filling.
Meanwhile, Director of the National Council for the Coordination of Public Participation for the GERD, Aragawi Berhe, for his part said extending the election is a step in the right direction. He nevertheless doesn't think extending the election has any impact on the filling of the dam.
The filling of the dam should not determine the election of Ethiopia. Election should be conducted provided you have the necessary preconditions, which are peace and mobility and freedom. Once you have all this, and especially peace is very crucial in elections. People have to gather, people have to come out, assemble, discuss, debate, interrogate the parties, and so on. So this requires peace.
Simena reiterated that all Ethiopians need to stand together at this critical time because various external forces are lined up to disrupt the Horn of Africa nation. Simena believes that extending the election has serious security implications for the country.
There are external forces that want to take advantage of the circumstances to destabilize the country. Particularly as fragmented as we are along ethnic, religious, linguistic lines, that makes Ethiopia vulnerable to external intervention. There are those who promote their interests in Ethiopia by destabilizing, weakening the country. There are also other groups who believe they would take advantage of the weakness of Ethiopia without having an interest in the Renaissance Dam.
Ethiopia has recently announced that the construction of the mega dam on the Blue Nile River has reached 80%, as it intends to fill the dam sometime in July for a second round.
Ministry of Foreign Affairs says the reconsideration of EU and US to observe the upcoming general election is the result of Ethiopia's solid political diplomacy campaigns. Ministry's spokesperson, Ambassador Dina Mufti, briefs media on Ethiopia's current diplomatic developments. Kasan Janesmo.
Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesperson Ambassador Dina Mufti briefed local and international media athletes concerning last week's diplomatic activities. The spokesperson highlighted a number of political and economic diplomacy activities, among which election-related actions were mentioned as a key diplomatic engagement arenas. Ambassador Dina stated that members of the international community from European Union and United States of America reconsidered to observe the upcoming general election after they announced laws of enter some weeks before. This, according to the spokesperson, comes after Ethiopia holds solid political position concerning the matter.
As far as the election is concerned, I'll mention only the international aspect of it. There are observers that are coming to see it. International Republican institutes from the UAE, National Democratic Institute also will observe it. We'll have representatives of the African Union, representatives of the embassies like US and the UK, and there are so many domestic observers, as many as 36 will observe. There could be others also which in the meantime could show up and observe for the coming elections.
Dina also highlighted President Sahle-Work Zewde's visit both in Uganda and France and mentioned that she had productive bilateral deliberations with various African leaders in Paris.
President Sahle-Work Zewde had attended the inauguration of President of Uganda, whereby in the meantime she also came across various African head of states, and they have exchanged views on bilateral relations as well as the current situations in the country. She also attended the meeting organized or sponsored by the French President, Emmanuel Macron, on the issues of supporting African countries that have had challenges of COVID-19, where in the meantime also there was an opportunity of coming across several leaders who were attending those meetings by Her Excellency the President.
Ambassador Dina also expressed some 1,200 citizens were repatriated from Saudi Arabia and Riyadh.
The National Electoral Board of Ethiopia has announced that the upcoming 6th general elections will be held on June 21st, 2021. The board previously scheduled to hold the elections on June 5th. It said the general elections will be held in June 21 in areas where voters' registration has been completed.